Hello and welcome back to Chasing Excellence, a show about chasing what truly matters. My name is Patrick Cummings. I'm here with Ben Bergeron. Thank you for tuning in to the show this time around. How you doing, Ben?
Doing great. Excited to chat, Pat.
I am excited.
I always say, so it rolls off the tongue when I say it, chat, Pat, but I never call you Pat. I call you Patrick. I've always called you Patrick, but for some reason when I say that,
it rhymes.
It's hard not to do. I'm doing great. Good to chat, Patrick. Patrick.
Too many syllables. Too many syllables.
Or I need to change it from chat. I'm excited for this, Patrick.
There you go. That's better. Nice work. Good adjustment. We are going to talk about today the 5 regrets of the dying. I don't remember how I came to this, but I was listening to somebody podcast and they had mentioned somebody doing work around the regrets of the dying. And so I did a little Googling and I found what we're going to talk through here is a short article by Bronnie Ware, Bronnie Ware, W-A-R-E. She wrote a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying, A Life Transformed by Dearly Departing. And so what we're going to talk about is a very short article that I imagine is just much more expanded inside of that book. So we haven't read the book yet, but we're just going to base it on this article where she gives us a sense of what the 5 regrets of the dying are. So that's what we're going to talk about. Before we do, chasingexcellence.email. If you want to get on our free newsletter list, that's the best way to do it. The link is in the show notes. If you're so inclined, you can also join us inside the Chase Club, where you can get ad-free episodes, bonus content, some fun things we've got planned for the end of the year. Also, wherever you're listening or watching this, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss another episode. Okay, so entering into this conversation, 5 regrets of the dying, I wanted to just zoom out just a little because what is still on my mind is the Comfort Crisis that we read inside the Chase Club as our book club. Part of that book that we didn't talk about at all when we talked about the micro-misogi in the book was one of the parts was about thinking about death every single day. I wanted to harken back to that a little bit. I'm going to read a quick quote from inside of the book because I think it cements us in why it makes sense to have this conversation, why collectively we want to think about the regrets of the dying. Here's a quote, and I'm going to butcher the guy's name. He's the head lama at the National Referral Hospital in Bhutan. His name is Lama Damcho Gyaltshen. Not going to get that right, but apologize. But here's the quote, because here's the important part. I have found that the people who have not thought about death are the ones who have regrets on their deathbeds because they have not used a necessary tool that could have made them live a fuller life. This makes me think about something that we've talked about certainly before, which is just this deathbed exercise of asking ourselves, when we are on our deathbed, when we are dying, when we look back on our life, are we going to be happy? Are we going to be proud? Are we going to feel fulfilled? Are we going to feel like we made the right choices, that we put our ladders up against the right wall? So I wanted to start there as an anchor point before we jump into the 5 regrets is your thoughts, the importance of actually thinking about, not even specifically thinking about the regrets, but actually first thinking about we are not going to get out of this thing alive. And actually in the book, The Comfort Crisis, I don't remember who he was referring to or who he was quoting, but he was quoting somebody, I think from the Bhutan as well, where he said, you should think about death in the morning, you should think about death in the afternoon, and you should think about death in the evening. And man, is that the opposite of how we do things here, certainly in the West. So let's just start there. Thoughts on that as a place to get into these regrets?
So I think anyone that's been following along with our conversation for certainly the last 4 or 5 years will realize that this is a big part of the exercise that we think is important in terms of figuring out how to chase what truly matters. Mm-hmm. I really love I'm going to call him the Lama because I can't say the other words, but this idea of he uses our words, which is the fulfilled life. Like we want and just think of what that is, like fulfilled, like filled up, like a life well lived. I don't know how somebody could want something other than that, right? So I think it's really the shared ultimate goal of every human being. Some people want to have a 6-pack, and other people want to earn $1 million, and other people want to travel the world, and other people want to have really incredible, deep, meaningful relationships. Other people want to find God. And that list goes on. But the one commonality I think that we all have is that we all want to have lived a well-lived life. Mm-hmm. Stealing from Stephen Covey, we need to begin with the end in mind. So how do we know how to chase that until we think about what thoughts we're going to have in our last moments? It's such a powerful tool for us. Most people think it's going to be a depressing act. It's the exact opposite. It's an incredibly freeing act because what it does is it creates a level of perspective to what we're actually doing and does this thing that feels crazy important, which is stressing you out. On your deathbed, is this actually going to have that importance? And we shortcut this a little, like, is this thing that's bugging you really going to matter in 5 years? Like in 5 years, it's not going to matter. On your deathbed, hopefully that's well past 5 years. And that's the way I think we should still experience this. I think that the deathbed experience can be multifaceted. Envision yourself as a 90-year-old taking their last day or two with great health and vitality up until that last day. What are you looking back on there? Then, okay, let's imagine you only have, which just hits home, hits really home. We have a member, somebody that we love and is a friend, who just got diagnosed with cancer. The diagnosis is, they've said there's a 0% chance you're going to make it past 18 months, and the realistic is we might get 6 to 12. So you have that perspective. Then you have this other kind of closer term. What if this was only 2 or 3 more years? And then you have, what if I was to die in a car accident in the car ride home? All of those are, I think, incredibly, like you said, think about in the morning, think about in the afternoon, and think about in the evening. This should always be there. And what it will end up doing is truly allow you to identify your values, eye roll moment, right? Because values are such a cliche, they're just an overused term. What it'll do is it'll help you really identify what is truly important to you. Then from there, it'll give you a perspective on, are any of these things you're doing right now worth your attention? Like this distracting thing, is that worth your attention? This thing that's causing you anxiety, is that worth your attention? From this thing that you feel is really important because other people have said it's important. I think it's one of the most clarifying exercises that we can do. And I think we're going to have a really challenging time figuring out what to chase without this exercise, which is why Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. If we were to build a business, if you were to try to become an athlete in something, if we were to do any other endeavor, we want to go, okay, what's the end going to look like? Then create the necessary steps on how to get there. If you say a fulfilled life is one of X, Y, and Z, then we have that awareness, then we create the intention, the plan on how to get to X, Y, and Z, and then we execute upon that. Otherwise, we're more like a leaf blowing in the wind, just hoping that our life is going to end up meaningful and fulfilled.
It reminds me of a recent episode where we were answering a listener question about, now that I'm not chasing PRs in the gym, like how do I get that dopamine response? And one of the things we talked about, or we got to, was this idea that sometimes you actually want to move, you want to think about what you're moving away from and not always what you're moving towards. Maybe you're not moving towards endless PRs, but you are moving away from a life where you can't play with your grandkids, or your example, which I love, was like you can't coach your grandkids' teams, right? And so I bring that up because thinking about these 5 regrets, I think when we think about like, well, what does a fulfilling life look like? That can sometimes be hard, especially if you're younger, when you haven't lived enough and you're not totally sure, like, where do I put my ladder? What is the end that I should keep in mind? These 5 regrets are at least really useful to say, okay, whatever a fulfilling life is for me, I want to make sure I'm moving away from these regrets, because somebody has asked enough people these questions. And so I know wisdom of the crowd says, these are the things that people tend to regret. So can I build my life away from these kinds of regrets?
Look at you, Patrick. You're like a professional podcast host, creating the connective tissue from that intro back to the topic at hand. Right. That was so well done.
Crushing it.
Take a sip, my man.
I appreciate the kudos. Okay, so as I said, Bronnie Ware, and this is from her website, bonnieware.com. We'll put it in the show notes really quick. She worked in palliative care, which is when folks are
What's it called?
Towards the end.
What's it
palliative.
called?
Yep, palliative. Yep.
Okay.
So it's when folks are near the end,
First
this is
time I've
the
heard
care
that.
that they get. She worked with folks for the last 3 to 12 weeks of their lives and talked to a lot of people, and this is what she pulled away. So we're just going to go through each one of these 5. Number 1, regret number 1. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And this is a little bit more context. This was the most common regret of all. When people realize that their life is almost over and look back clearly on it, it is easy to see how many dreams have gone unfulfilled. Most people had not honored even half of their dreams and had to die knowing that it was due to the choices they made or not made. And I'm just going to throw in one more quote from the Comfort Crisis. This is actually from philosopher Martin Heidegger, but it was quoted inside of the Comfort Crisis. If I take death into my life, acknowledge it, and face it squarely, I will free myself from the anxiety of death and the pettiness of life, and only then will I be free to become myself.
Ooh.
Where
Wow.
to begin?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is such
I think
a
the word
cool
courage is the thing that sticks out at me most.
Absolutely. How easy is it to succumb to the pushes of outside forces? It takes a lot to beat your own drum. And there's what was most surprising to me of that is that it was the most common.
Yeah.
That's the most common of them all, because that's a deep level of introspection. Like, that's not just like, I wish I hadn't spent much time in the office. I wish I had worked more on my relationships. I wish I had been more financially responsible, whatever it might be. This is a big one. I wish I had the courage to live a life on my terms. It's crazy how, if that is the case, to me, when you're reading that, it's hitting home big time. How can you hear that and not go, what am I doing? I have dreams that are unfulfilled, and maybe it takes a lot of courage to stop what you're doing and go and do something else. A lot of courage. So I also liked what Heidegger said in terms of like, this allows you to understand the pettiness. I think it's a really key word. I think that's a lot of what we're trying to do. You know, the idea that I think it was Churchill said, which is in your 20s, you're so concerned what other people think. In your 40s, you stop caring what other people think. And in your 60s, you realize no one was thinking about you anyway.
Yep. I love that quote.
I think that as people are getting towards their last weeks, they're realizing like, man, I did so much in service of what I thought other people wanted of me and not what I actually wanted to pursue. I wanted to move to Hawaii, live on the beach, collect seashells, and not make any money, but just eat mangoes off my farm all day. But I was afraid of what my friends might think of me, what my brother and sister might think of me. I was afraid of what my parents might think of me. I was afraid of what, and that's like a good call out that we should, the thing that we are trying to do with these conversations is pop ourselves up and out of the matrix a little bit and go, let's chase what truly matters. And I think that we should always have that thought going on right now. You've heard me say this in the business setting, but WIN, like what's important now? We should always be asking ourselves that question. What's important now? Well, if death is imminent, what's important is that we better be doing the things that are going to lead to a fulfilled life. That's what's important. And all the other things, as Heidegger said, become kind of petty.
Yep. There's an element of essentialism in there. It's funny what you just said made me think that, yes, we are here trying to chase what truly matters, but really what that sentence could be, or perhaps should be, is we want to know what truly matters, and then we want to have the courage to actually chase it. There's 2 stops on that train. First, we've got to figure out enough of ourselves to know that end that we're trying to get to know what's going to actually fulfill us. But that's not enough, right? That awareness is not enough. We need that next step of intention and that last step of action. The action is what requires courage.
Wow. What's so fun is like, just even the title of Ware's book, The 5 Regrets.
Yep.
The fact that it's kind of implied that we're going to have these regrets on our deathbed.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't that be our ultimate goal, is just to not live with regrets? What is because you start off like, it's hard to know what a fulfilled life looks like. If we don't know what to steer towards, let's steer away. Maybe I'm just re-saying what you said in that really nice segue from my intro to that. See, that's why you're so damn good at that. That's why I was so impressed. I want to say it again, but it's already been said. Moving on.
Moving on. All right, let's go to number 2. Regret number 2. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And some more context. This came from every male patient that I nursed. They missed their children's youth and their partner's companionship. Women also spoke of this regret, but as most were from an older generation, many of the female patients had not been breadwinners. All of the men I nursed deeply regretted spending so much time of their lives on the treadmill of a work existence. And then, because we live in a world of Instagram, as I was literally like 10 minutes before I logged on to talk to you, Instagram fed me this post from Puberty. I have no idea why they called it Puberty, but it's got like 40 million followers. So this is relatively well known. But it says, millennial dads spend 3 times as much time with their kids than previous generations. And in the caption, it says, millennial dads are redefining fatherhood. A noticeable shift is emerging. Increased commitment to shared parenting duties, as shown by the significant drop in fathers who have never changed a diaper. 43% in 1992 had never changed a diaper, and today it's just 3%. These fathers are not only dedicating more time to their kids, but also taking on activities like bathing and bedtime routines. I just thought that was an interesting generational shift, and maybe a regret that our generation and those coming after us might feel less of. Because I certainly, of these regrets, there are parts of me that's like, I put too much of my identity into work. I spend too much time thinking about work. But I've tried really hard to set those boundaries so that it's, I work hard. I think about work a lot, but never at the expense of being present, being here, being an active parent.
Well, that's like it just might be a generational thing. I mean, it's hard to say that's not going to be a generational thing, because that shift from 43% to 3% is massive. And I think that, I'm not a millennial, but I think that I would be really curious to see, like, I don't even know what I'm a Gen X.
Gen X. I think you're probably a very early Gen Xer.
How old are you, Patrick?
43.
Are you also Gen X?
I'm technically an elder millennial, so I'm right on the edge.
I think that's awesome. What a cool trajectory that we could actually say that the 5 regrets of the dying. And how cool is it to say, like, one of those, at least, well, so far, 50% of them are not going to be a regret. We're 1 for 2 in terms of our generation working hard to recognize and fix that. Now, having said that, I don't want to say that, like, we got this, we're crushing it, because there are still times that, like, I put up a lot of frameworks, a lot of clear lines, a lot of boundaries to make sure that I'm as present and doing as much of my family as I can. But I also do think that my life would be more fulfilled if I wasn't working as hard. Now, that's a weird thing for me to say, because as I'm saying it, I'm like, but I like it. And I like this thing. And that's a little bit about the kind of tying back to the first one, is it would take a lot of bravery on my part, a lot of courage to go, and I could do it, where I'm going to work 20% less. That could be done. The honest answer right now is I don't have the courage or the faith that that's the right move. I think that's what holds us all back, right? I don't think that moving to Maui and collecting shells and eating mangoes is the right move, so I'm not going to do it. One of the aspects of this is that we're not going to know. Like, I just have to put that on the table. None of us will ever know that we're doing this the exact right way. I think that if we moved to India and started hiking the Himalayas and hanging out with monks, the people that are supposed to have the most peace of mind as anybody on planet Earth, I still don't know if we would have doubts that we're doing the right thing. And the example of that is I've done it twice, where I was like, I'm going to move out west and become a ski bum, thinking that that's what I really want to do. And while I was out there, I was like, I think back east and, having a career might be cool too. So I think there's this tug and pull of grass is greener, but we all know the grass is greener where you water it. So it's a matter of doing the best of what you can with what you got.
Yep. And remembering that purpose is a big part of living a life
Yeah.
of lower regrets. And like when we think about, I think a lot of times the easy thing to think about is just like, oh, I would go on vacation forever. But like, as we know, people like you and I anyways, you go on vacation for a week, you're like, okay, that was good.
Yeah.
I'm ready to be,
By day
ready
8,
to
it's
be
like,
useful.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's
Yeah.
that balance, and there's the reality of, I don't think many of us would thrive in this sort of utopian, idyllic, no work, no responsibilities, no
and
stress.
I don't really think it's right, because the saying is something along the lines of human beings are just looking for a worthy thing to work on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want. We are in our nature. We are worker bees. We are creators. No animal on planet Earth has changed the planet more than we have. We are creators. We make things. We do things. So that is what we are in our DNA. And us, what we say we might want, we might not necessarily want, which is let's go in the beach thing. So it is that striving for the worthy cause. Maybe that's the difference when we say working, the regret of the people that are working. I can't remember who said it, but it's along the lines of, maybe it was Simon Sinek. Working hard for something we don't care about is sort of like a form of hell, whereas working hard for something that we truly believe in is called passion.
Mm-hmm.
It's called purpose.
Yep.
Maybe that's what we should be striving for more than anything else, devoting our efforts towards working on the right problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Let's take a quick break, say thanks to a few sponsors, then we've got 3 more regrets to dive into. We're brought to you this time around by Shopify. Are you selling something? Do you use the internet to do so? If you answered yes to both of those questions, well, you probably need some Shopify. Go to shopify.com/excellence to learn more about the global commerce platform that exists to help you at every stage of your business, and get yourself a $1 per month trial when you sign up. You may not have heard of Shopify before, but you definitely have used it. Some of the biggest brands in the world use Shopify to reach customers and grow their businesses. Allbirds, Rothy's, and Noble all use Shopify, amongst many, many others. And you possibly, whether you're selling coaching services, your homemade protein bars, or graphic tees, Shopify's tools, apps, and services make it easy to get started and easy to grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/excellence. That's shopify.com/excellence to level up your business today. We're also brought to you by Cozy Earth. You know the importance of good sleep. That's why we want to make sure you know about Cozy Earth, a brand that offers luxurious bedding and loungewear to elevate your sleep experience. Point your internet machines to cozyearth.com. Be sure to use the code excellence at checkout to save yourself some of that hard-earned dough. Imagine this: after a good day of training or a long, intense weekend hike, you retreat to the sanctuary of your bedroom and Cozy Earth's bedding. Their bedding ensures your body gets the rest it craves, so it can do what you want it to tomorrow, next weekend, next month, and for the rest of your life. Stay cool, comfortable, and ready for your next day's workout or adventure. Here's an exclusive offer for you: 30% off with code excellence at cozyearth.com. Let Cozy Earth help you on your path to health, fitness, and deep, rejuvenating sleep. Okay, we are back to our list here. Regret number 3. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. A little bit more context from Bronnie Ware. Many people suppress their feelings in order to keep peace with others. As a result, they settled in for a mediocre existence and never became who they were truly capable of becoming. Many developed illnesses relating to the bitterness and resentment they carried as a result. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings.
What I find very interesting is that she was able to draw the connection between suppressing feelings and getting disease.
Yep, and the stress and the
person,
chronicness.
yes. So as a person that's so into the physiology of the mind and stress and what it does in the body, that's a very cool understanding that she has of how detrimental. And it's why we, have the think and connect buckets. Mm-hmm. It's because we know that those two things are the things most correlate, most drastically affect your stress levels. If you think as a pessimist or a victim, stress is going to be you have a much more challenging experience in existence. If you have really toxic relationships, as opposed to people you can truly confide in and get close to, so drastically levels up your stress levels. As we know, stress changes things from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic nervous system. It shifts you from rest and repair to fight or flight, which then deregulates your immune system, which then allows different viruses, pathogens to basically you get sicker and you have more likelihood of disease. So just a little kudos to Ware for that level of understanding that's why that can lead to disease. From there, I do think that we've talked so much about, it's particularly a few years ago, that Stoic methodology, that Stoic approach. And I think people misconstrue the Stoic philosophy and our approach. We are not saying don't experience emotions. When we say be centered, we're saying experience emotions. Experience them fully all the way through, and then don't hold on to them. That's what this is about. If something pulls you off center, go all the way into it. Don't suppress it. When you suppress, you are then off center. You're creating a new line that you're traveling that is off the center. And you're always off center. Whether it's some joy, laughter, or elation, experience that to the fullest. Like, get close to the people. Immerse yourself in that love, in that passion, whatever it might be. Similar is if you experience something tragic, something that you need to mourn, or a loss of a job, or whatever it is, fully experience that. But then don't hold on to it. Don't hold on to either one. This is something we learned working with the elite athletes. After you win an event, let's go. High fives, headbutts. Let's celebrate. Gloat if you want to. You are the best. 5 minutes later, it's back to business. Let's go. We got work to do. Same thing if you feel like you got robbed, it was unfair, you did terrible, you're the worst, whatever it is. Cool. Say it. Get it all out. 5 minutes later, we're back to business. It's when athletes don't allow themselves to have that. Now, I'm talking in our sport, which is CrossFit, which is when you finish an event and it's over. So this would be after a game. In game, you don't get to play those swings. Business, you're at work. You're doing the business. But then afterwards, experience them. Highs, lows, let's do it. And then back to business. That's the most productive path. That is the path to get everything you can out of your athletic career, parallel to life. If we want to get everything we can out of our lives, experience the full swings of both sides, and then it's back to business. It's back to living the life on your terms, not on the terms that your emotions are dictating.
Any thoughts on the reoccurrence of that word courage and why perhaps it's so hard to live a courageous life, however a person may define that word courage or what courage looks like in their particular context? It's interesting to me that it comes up twice.
So there's a difference between like courage and bravery. And bravery is you don't feel fear. Like you're just brave. Courage is acting in spite of fear, acting in spite of doubt, acting in spite of anxiety. So what courage says is, I have that thing that's holding me back, and I'm the antidote to that. I'm the countermeasure to that. And it makes sense because there are these regrets. There's these 5 things that are holding people back from living their best lives, living fulfilled, well-lived lives. It would make sense that it would take courage to be able to counteract regrets. So it's almost by the fact that they're regrets, it requires courage to overcome the regrets. If they weren't regrets, they wouldn't require courage. Now, maybe we could substitute some other thing in there, like, no, we'd have to, because even if I was thinking like curiosity, because curiosity wouldn't be like, you wouldn't be aware of the regret. You'd have to go in, but once you're aware of it, the countermeasure to that is courage. This is the thing that's holding me back. I see it. It's right there in front of me. I'm going to go right through that thing. That's hard. It's really hard.
Yep. move to number 4. Regret number 4. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Oftentimes, and this is from the article, oftentimes they would not truly realize the full benefits of old friends until their dying weeks, and it was not always possible to track them down. Many had become so caught up in their own lives that they let golden friendships slip by over the years. There were many deep regrets about not giving friendships the time and effort that they deserved. Everyone misses their friends when they are dying.
Wow.
Yeah. That pairs nicely with the I wish I didn't work so much.
We're on number 4, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Of the 4 so far, this is probably the one that resonates with me the most of them.
Agreed.
Because I'm fairly caught up in my own life, my own job, and my own family. I have a lot of friends of convenience, meaning that their kids are our kids' friends. They're members of our gym, but I am not good at holding on to or keeping in touch with people that aren't right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Long distance relationships, like I know I'm out of sight, out of mind. Mm-hmm. Growing up, my very best friends were my summer friends. I never talked to them during the winter, like ever.
Yeah.
It would be, June 30th. It'd be like we picked up like we never left off. But then, September 1st, I wouldn't see them again. This resonates a lot with me, and I could see this being one of my regrets.
Yep. I agree. And I know it's one of those things that maybe just phase of life with young kids and a busy work that something's got to give, right? And maybe it's an effort of knowing when you can turn that dial back up and making sure that you do turn it back up when you are able to, and not beating ourselves up too much over the fact that like we've got a lot of dials that we're trying to turn at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know about that because like my brother does a very good job of this.
Yeah.
There are people that stay in very good touch with people that are not close to them. Yep. He's on all the different text threads with all his different friends from all these different places. They make the time to get together at certain times of the year to keep the friendships going. I don't know. I love to say it's just a nature of
a phase of life.
Phase of life, but there are people that are doing a lot better than you and I.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then chalk that up to work for us.
And it's honestly, it's one of those things that when I look at values and what's important in my life, I know that's not one of my tops. It's just not. And that's one of the reasons I think for my brother, it is. Like he does value the friendships a ton. I value, and not that he doesn't, but kids and family. The story I tell myself is that there's not a lot of time for that.
Yep, I agree. Okay, regret number 5, last one. I wish that I had let myself be happier. Bronnie Ware writes this. This is a surprisingly common one. Many did not realize until the end that happiness is a choice. They had stayed stuck in old patterns and habits. The so-called comfort of familiarity overflowed into their emotions as well as their physical lives. Fear of change had them pretending to others and to themselves that they were content, when deep within they longed to laugh properly and have silliness in their life again.
Okay, that's really interesting. It's really interesting because there's a lot of different definitions of happiness.
Yep, exactly.
And what she's pointing to there is silliness and laughter. So
a lack of seriousness or too much seriousness.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That. So I would almost like scratch out the happiness and put in not enough, not serious. What's the right word for there? Levity, lightness, laughter. I think that's a good one. It's really good. I could see that in a lot of cases. Now I'm getting curious in terms of what's her cohort? Who is she studying? Because it sounds like it's a lot of male professionals. Suppressing emotions, not laughing a lot, worked too much, didn't do what I wanted to do, did what society and my family and my friends expected of me.
Also generational. I think that's probably a generational.
Yeah, right.
Yep,
well, which makes sense. Like the people that are dying are all the baby boomers. It sounds like it's male baby boomers that had the normal corporate ladder jobs. I'd be really curious to understand who the population was that she had access to, because I don't know if all of those. I think it's a really good list that resonates with me. Let's put it that way. But I don't know if this would be my daughter, my older daughter, does a great job with her friends. She does tons of laughter.
That's a great point.
She's living a life on her term. Like, it's the 5 regrets of the dying, but who's dying here?
Yep. Yeah.
But I do think that, because it's like, and again, I want to point that out because this resonates with me. I feel like I could have more levity and silliness. I'm very much in terms of creating the structure and the framework to make sure I'm enjoying a very fulfilled, I'm like trying to engineer a happy life in a sense.
Yep.
Not to say that I don't have fun and laugh. My wife says that I'm the funniest person she knows. I keep telling her, you're the only one that laughs at my jokes. That and this other guy, there's another Ben in my 930 class. I was like, you and Ben from the 930 class are the only ones that laugh at my jokes.
Keep him around.
They're like my sitcom laugh track. When they're both in class, it's great. When they're not, people are like, what is he talking about? Another 80s movies reference? Oh, no. But yeah,
I wish I'd let myself be happy. At first reading of that, I think you and I probably read that as happier, fill that into a different word, right?
Yeah.
Fulfilled, etc.
Yeah.
And maybe that's obviously embedded inside some of the other regrets. But I think specifically, if she's talking about, or what she's finding is that people just took themselves too seriously. I can see that. And I can also see why that's a regret. When you look back and you realize, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't sit in that moment and just enjoy that moment and soak that moment in. I was thinking about the next thing, or I was worried about the whatevers. And I didn't just sit there and just smile or laugh or appreciate the sound of somebody else's laughter or the light or the whatever it might be. That I feel, that I think, even if I wouldn't say, I didn't let myself be happy, I moved too quickly through moments that I should have sat in. And if that's similar to what she's talking about or what she's getting out of folks, like that makes sense to me. I hear that and I feel that.
I think everyone can do a better job of that. It's sitting in the moment a little bit longer. I have a tendency to kind of like, what's next? What's next? Let's get to the next thing. But in terms of that definition that you just laid out, I think I'm doing a much better job of that than the silliness, the brevity, the lightness, the laughter, because we've created the framework for the other side, which is happiness is expectations minus reality. So if your expectations are too high, then you're going to be, when reality presents itself, what that means is I'm never going to experience anything negative. This is the idea of the realist. It's what's come from. If we can live our lives as a realist, we eliminate that, well, I think life should look out like this. I don't think I should ever get an offender bender. I don't think anyone on social media should ever say anything bad about me. I think that my coaches should always coach a class just like I want them to. We've worked hard to remove those expectations and know that there's going to be challenges in life. So from that aspect of happiness being expectations minus reality, I think that me, you, and the other people listening to the podcast are doing a much stronger job than the other side, which is the silliness, the laughter, but also what you're talking about, which I like a lot, the Eckhart Tolle approach of the power of now, this moment right now. Like, can we sit here without judgment, without want for the next thing, and just truly love this moment for this moment, whatever it is, whether it's a conversation on a podcast, changing a dirty diaper, working out, working on a project, or doing yard work. We can just appreciate this for the actual aspect of what it is. That's something for us all to work on at every given time. No amount of frameworks or anything else is going to get us there. I do think this is where certain levels of bringing awareness to it. So like Eckhart Tolle is a phenomenal if you haven't read The Power of Now and New Earth, it's basically his whole entire thing is built around that. There's also another recent book I read. Was it Michael Easter's other book, Scarcity Brain, where he went and talked to, I hope that was what it was. He went and talked to Eckhart Tolle about it. And that was phenomenal. That was fascinating to listen to his interpretation of meeting Eckhart Tolle and just how he was so calm and so accepting of any sort of social awkwardness that it made him even more awkward because he could just sit there and wait for you to say something.
Yeah.
And just be totally happy in the moment for what that moment's presenting. There was nothing he needed to change in any given moment. That almost seems fake, right?
Yeah.
Almost seems unreal. It almost seems like that's a level of contentment or enlightenment, but something for us all to shoot for.
All right. That was The 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. We'll put a link to this short article. Her book is called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. Regret number 1, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the lives others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. Thank you, Ben. That was super fun. Thank you out there for listening. Thank you for your ratings, for your reviews. Thank you especially when you share the show with your friends. That helps new folks find us, and we appreciate that. ChasingExcellence.email is where to go if you want a little bit more. Consider jumping into the Chase Club. We would love to see you there. Ben and I will be back soon for a brand new episode of Chasing Excellence.